Hey, everybody, hit that like. I'm going to, screw it. I'm just going to jump straight in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm back in my regular digs. Mike is on. We're ready to roll. And today, as our morning guest is the lovely and talented Cliff Schechter. He's on YouTube.
More lovely than talented.
Cliff's _edge. Hey, look, don't question relativity to a nerd like me. You know what I mean? Don't even. Let me tell you, buddy.
I don't know the formula,
Just
because I'm Jewish doesn't mean I'm Einstein, okay?
One man's hot stove is another man's pretty girl.
Or one man's sofa cushion is another man's wife. You never know with these things.
Look, I just want to thank personally J.D. Vance for answering the age-old question that has tormented mankind since we moved out of the caves, and that is, what's the difference between a sofa and a love seat? A rubber glove.
That's right.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here all week.
I'll be here. I'd like to just thank him and J.D. Vance in general for being J.D. Vance and somehow befriending Peter Thiel, the weird James Bond villain, enough that Trump felt that he had to pick him. So we've had the pleasure of a story a day, I think, about something J.D. Vance has said, done, humped. I love his whole existence in this race. Makes me so happy.
It's a gift that keeps on giving because there's no bottom. There really, and you know what's interesting? There's never been a bottom with Trump. With J.D. Vance, there are no sides. It just goes.
Well, actually, I was going to say, J.D., you said there's no. Sorry, go ahead.
It just spreads and spreads and spreads. Like there's no inconceivable weirdness with him. Right. If you get out, it's like the next. I would not be surprised if a video came out that was not AI, that's genuinely real, poorly shot on high 8 or whatever. That's J.D. Vance doing a little bit he likes to call one guy, one cup.
Well, I'm just going to say, when you said there's no bottom, I always thought with the couch, J.D. Vance was the bottom. I thought the couch was the top.
No.
So
we're
not going there.
No, I don't think he put the rubber glove on the legs.
I don't know, and you know what I think when I'm thinking of weirdness that still is going to come out here. I don't know. Do you watch the Boys?
Yeah. Yes. Although
there's an octopus in our future. I'm just going to say to you right now. We haven't seen it yet, but Deep State. The deep state, I don't know, close enough. All I have to say is, when it comes to J.D. Vance, I think sofa's not enough. There will be an octopus in the future. I'm pretty sure.
I prefer the octopus in Resident Alien, but there you go. By the way, I am wearing a DNC Chicago merch shirt that I picked up at the Hyatt next door to our hotel, where I humped over, and I was like, they had a little pop-up store of official DNC merch. And some people were like, Hal, you should be there. I have to sing at the Jam tomorrow night, and I have to be in Knoxville. You
should have bought a bunch of it, Hal. Bought a bunch of the merch, signed it, and then resell it at a higher price.
Well, I don't have to do that. You know why? Because, Cliff, this is in your future at some point. A lovely Nerd Halen pocket protector.
Oh. All right. Well, we're talking about that being that I'm going to see when Sammy is here and they're doing the Van Halen songs. I love both eras of Van Halen. The top 2 to 3 band for me. I grew up with that. Yeah. And Zeppelin and Aerosmith and GNR were kind of the holy Mount Rushmore for me. And so I'll be going to that. So maybe I can figure out a way to get from you a Nerd Halen shirt, and I will wear Nerd Halen to the Van Halen show.
Oh, we have I just made these. These just showed up today as like a test print. So I'm very persnickety about merch. And I've been burned in the past because it doesn't last. But this is a new Nerd Halen shirt that I made.
Again, up to you. But if you want me wearing that in a manner of speak, endorsing it for you,
I'll get your sizes.
And I get my 2 boys to wear it too. So we can all wear them around there, and people be like, "Where'd you get that?" And I'll have a card or something ready.
Or you can just go, "I got it from Hal Sparks." This is my Sweet Home Alabama style Hal Sparks shirt.
Oh God.
These are whenever I have an idea for one of my merch shirts on the Streamlabs thing or on my Teespring store, I don't trust them because sometimes they they get crinkly they don't last or those kind of things, and that annoys me because I feel bad selling a shirt that won't last, even though I don't really have much option. The other thing is to create a run of them of 20,000 garments on a really high level, and then it never happened. Then you've got a garage full of shirts, right? That's how that happens.
Right.
But in this particular instance, I order demos of them. They sell them at cost, so you buy them at cost, and then I wash them a bunch of times and see if they stand up. And if they can handle 5 washes or 6 washes, I'm like, okay, they'll be all right. They'll manage. So
I've got some cool merch that I've been messing with, so I'll have some stuff out there sooner.
I gotta say,
the channel is now becoming real. I might as well do all the real stuff.
Right? Yeah. I would. I learned this from Trump, which is why bother telling the truth about your numbers at all? And by the way, I don't know if you know this, Cliff, but congratulations on being on the greatest live stream on the internet. Period. Hands down. The Hal Sparks Mornings Megaworldwide and Hal Sparks Megaworldwide. Unequivocally, it is literally the internet is packed. There are people outside the internet waiting to get in, and
they're knocking on the series of tubes, as Ted Stevens,
absolutely, trying to find a way. They're trying to sneak in when the guard isn't looking, and it's not going to work. You get in early, you humps, and then of course. It's because people people come here to see Hal Sparks the way Hal Sparks. Because that's the key. Also, and saying your name a bunch of times.
Also, Cliff's Edge, and you should go subscribe to Cliff's Edge on YouTube, and it's also Cliff's Edge. I will.
It works.
I think that all makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, so again, it's basic messaging I've been sort of screaming about to a certain party that starts with the letter D. Ends with the letter C for years, when we would be like, oh, let's put out 4 policy papers, and oh, they're below us, they're saying nasty stuff. We'll rise above that. And I'm like, no, fucking no. Here's what you're going to speak to them in emotional language that resonates with people, tell the story of America and how it fits in the Democratic Party, and you're going to be aggressive, and you're going to stay on offense, and you're going to answer every fucking charge they make against you with a counter charge, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm finally
be charming.
I'm going to do a video. Be charming while you do it. Smile, and I'm finally. This is the nirvana. You don't understand. For me, seeing the campaign that Kamala and Tim Walz are running, where they're being serious, they're engaging, they're talking about real issues, but they're smiling, and then they're putting out those snarky ass press releases, and they're mocking Trump about everything from his age to. I love the. This is a description of whatever the hell that was. Like, just his insanity, his dementia, his age, his weirdness. These are the things that if anybody goes back and looks through everything that I've done since I started going on MSNBC in 2002 or something.
Yeah.
I've been preaching this shit.
Yeah, like screaming into a volcano.
It was for a while. I mean, there are a few others like me. Bob Seska, who I know you know well.
Yes.
I'm not going to say I'm the only one, like I'm some genius, but anybody who understood basic marketing and messaging and how you communicate, there were a group of us, some of them associated with sexy liberals, some outside there, some of whom have since left because the Democratic Party wouldn't change and they got sick of always fighting an uphill battle. But that I've been able to stick around and get to a point where I see them doing this stuff, where I have trouble coming up with, even things where I would say, you screwed that up or you should have done that. Where in the past, my God, I used to have 1,000 of those things. It got better when I was running ads for Biden in 20, and it got better then. But they'd reject some of the stuff that I would do because it was a little too aggressive, let's just say. And now they're just,
I think they've
awesome.
Perhaps, as our dear friend Lenny Bruce would say, lesson gained.
Yes.
We got to cool it. And I would say that there's a line in one of my favorite movies ever, Miller's Crossing.
Good movie.
Yeah, it's excellent. Every frame of that movie could be hung on a wall as a piece of art. Every single frame. You could pick a random frame and it will be a piece. It could be a photograph you could discuss in an art class for a decade. It's that good. And there's the heavy for the main bad guy in it who does all of his dirty work. At one point he's sitting there because he's really suspicious of the Tom character. And he goes, everybody is so goddamn smart. Meaning, back then especially, because everybody was using the hip phrases, everybody had a hat, Everybody was wearing a tie. Everybody is so goddamn smart. And the idea being is that everybody got hip all of a sudden. It became, hip became normal for a good long while.
Well, that was so if you understand, culture and how culture works, culture is very simple, right? It's sort of like the Overton window concept. It's the box in which we all reside, right? Culture is what you can do, what's acceptable, what is even commendable,
right?
Whether it's in music, art, politics, it's where if you step outside, everybody's like, what's wrong with you? And I always said if we would get enough people, which is why I literally dedicated, I apologize, sorry, but I'm saying again, Cliff's Edge, my channel, because you can go find 30 to 50 videos right now. I dedicated my channel to, we are going to change the culture. And again, not saying I'm not an arrogant ass. I'm not saying it was just me. Others did this too. How? But when a Democrat would kick a Republican's ass, would be snarky, would be awesome. Jasmine Crockett, Eric Swalwell, Jared Moskowitz, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, they were. I think it was part of it is that the sort of younger part of and middle part of Gen X on down didn't grow up in the sort of, as I call it, the Reagan crouch, where they were like, oh my God, he's so popular and he's likable, and they grew up in the Gingrich era. Is when they started getting into politics and these guys are assholes. Nobody likes them. And the reason they're winning is because they lie about everything. They aggressively lie. We sit there and we take it. We think that this is a policy debate when it should be in a perfect world, but it's not. And I think from that generation on down, I mean, the Swalwells and the Whitmers are in their 40s and 50s. I think from that group on down to the Gen Zs that are there and the millennials in between, they have led the way on this, on sort of and changing that culture. And I did everything I could with my channel, with every other opportunity I've gotten to highlight the people that have shown that you can be responsible, smart, for great policy, for great governing. And guess what? Also, you can get there by not sitting there and letting them define you and letting them lie about you and being weak with them. You can get there by kicking their fucking asses and pointing out who they are and in a way that you have to do to win in campaigns and then govern effectively.
Well,
and it's been getting better and better and better, but now we're finally in a place where it's all seems to have come together.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people, especially when we were having conversations. I think JoJo from Jers and we were having I got to have breakfast with Ron and her and John and a couple of it was just nice to have us all be able to sit around and actually have a conversation. Is most of the time when we're interacting, most of the time when we're interacting, we're about to go on or just about to finish. Yep. So we have these great, I think, deep friendships amongst ourselves, but they are very much work friendships, and we don't get a chance to just kind of ease into our own personal opinions about stuff. And one of the things was I kept hearing over and over again is how much everybody loves Michelle Obama, and they love the idea of when they go low, we go high, that kind of stuff. And I basically, while we were talking, in my head popped the phrase, when they go low, we get real. And I think that's what's happening. Right now, I
always said when they go low, we deliver a sharp blow. And, that was my whole thing. And again, I've actually been sort of very careful to say this because I don't want people thinking. I think Michelle Obama has been one of the singular best people in public life. Mm-hmm. I think she is brilliant. I think she is just more class than almost anyone we've ever seen. And she's terrific and was a terrific influence on young girls, a terrific influence on all of us talking about eating healthy, which was something that made Republicans hate her because, right, God forbid you don't you don't snort gravy in the morning or whatever. So they all hated her for it. But you're right about what you're saying about modern day, Eleanor Roosevelt. So I loved her. But, I also had to say, she just was wrong on this. She just, she didn't get, this because she has not been a politician. She's operated in a different atmosphere where there are rules that people respect and follow. We're dealing with an anti-democratic, vicious,
and it's gotten
power-hungry force. Yes,
they've
only gotten much worse since 2016. And
because they keep purging the people who might have been, a ballast in that situation, that might have balanced them out. And I always lay it back on us. It's always us. I can't tell a fucking lunatic QAnon how to fix their brain and become like a normal person. I'm not going to be able to talk down a flat earther per se. But what I can do is go, okay, what do we need to do? We need to fix, obviously, some elements of education. We have to have like stricter rules about, like what's perceived as information and what we're willing to mock right out of the gate, instead of just in an attempt to be like absolutists about, openness. There are certain ideas where you can just do a hard stop. Like, I don't need to hear your idea on eugenics and racial purity and all this. Like, you know what I mean? That's a hard stop. I don't need to fucking float around and have that conversation. The only time I ever listen to that kind of shit is to figure out, like, funny ways to push back on it in my end when it shows up so I can mock it.
Yeah.
Right. But
what
not
we're supposed
I'm,
to be debating is in some ways, if certain, traditional mores or ways that held society together. And of course, I think that there is a positive side to tradition. But when those mores meant putting some people below others, we're not going to debate them. And then I also believe that there always is a fair economic debate, right? We're all along certain, the spectrum. I mean, except for them, who they go back to this same stupid Kamala, communism with the K and right. Whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, that's stupidity again. No, we believe in there's different levels of how much we believe the government needs to be involved in markets, and these are debates we should have, and we used to with them before they became a complete anarcho-insane party that believed that anybody could refuse a vaccine, could refuse to pay their taxes, could own any gun, could eat any food they wanted when the rest of us pay for their health care if they end up in a hospital and all the other shit. They've told people to be little selfish brats and do what you want. Well, in the old, again, there used to be a party where we could debate these kinds of things. I will not debate, again, basic science with them. I will not debate the science of vaccines. I will not debate people's humanity. I will not debate whether women have the right to control their body, whether anyone has the right to love someone who they love, whether somebody who has the right to not believe Jesus is their savior. I will not debate that shit.
Right.
All right. So it's just because
especially
that's
because
our Constitution.
There's a big portion of this that I've always said that there's a distinct line between things you can legislate and things you cannot. So there are undebatables because, quite frankly, and as long as you don't try to legislate it, I give a fuck. If you think the world is flat, try and walk off the end. It's no skin off my nose. As long as you're not taking your children with you.
I'd encourage you to do it. If you think the world's a big compact disc, go for a walk.
Go find the edge. Unless you're taking your children with you, in which case that's where, it might be, Child Protective Services might need to be called in. That would be the difference, because that affects someone that is not able to make a decision themselves. But what consenting adults do and what singular consenting adults do with their own fucking brain is their own goddamn business. And I think it's interesting that Walz has brought back the whole mind your own damn business part, which is a thread that will be mined all through the fall in a way that I don't think Republicans can appreciate, because I've always, that whole, like, we need a smaller government. We need a government so small it can fit inside a woman's uterus so it can stand there like a guard and go, non-child pass.
Right.
And that you don't get more big government than that kind of small government. That kind that's just it doesn't care about the big things you can't handle. You can't handle roads and infectious diseases, and you can't handle fucking dams and nuclear power on your own. You just fucking can't. That's something governments do. That's something groups of people decide to do with their taxes. But there are a lot of things anything you can handle on your own, then that gets increasingly in your world of individual freedom. But the irony is they want to do the opposite. They want to police the individual freedoms and then undermine our ability to do big things.
To do big things economically. Well, and that's why this has always been my position has been the direct opposite of that, which is...
And he's a historian.
Sorry, that was...
Something came into my ear.
It's okay.
Cool. It's all good. Anybody who's doing something, that affects them and only them, they have the absolute right. It's just when I would get in these debates, when I was doing sort of work, for a while, a decade ago, for Every Town for Gun Safety, I'm like, well, it's my right to do what I want with my gun. And I was like, yeah, and it totally is. If you're willing to get a smart gun and you're willing to go through all the background checks and this and that. But the minute that I have to worry that your fucking gun leaves your house and is in the public square belongs to all of us.
Yeah.
So if you are going to do anything to defile the public square or threaten our families in the public square, and I don't care if that's you having an AR-15, that if the minute you make a decision in your warped fucking mind to kill my family, there's literally nothing we can do about it. So it is not your right. If you're going to come out there and cough on us with your fucking Ebola, it is not your right. Right. I'm sorry. Those are things that affect the rest of us. You can do. I am, and that's where, of course, we disagree. The things
on an individual level, you should be. If you're a high order citizen and you actually give a shit about your life and the lives around you, that is something that the state should be able to leave up to you. If you trusted the whole world to behave, this is the kind of the utopian ideal that they accuse Marxists of all the time, is that somehow they're like, hey man, if everybody has a gun, everybody will behave. Like, no, they fucking don't. And
that's why Yemen is so safe,
Right, exactly. Every major mass shooter we've had over the last 6 years have all been licensed, legal gun owners, including the dude who took a shot at Trump, because that would be more like a mass shooting, insofar as we know, than an actual assassination attempt. But that fucker, he was a registered gun owner who went to the range regularly, trained, and up till the second he pulled the trigger in an illegal way, he was a legal, law-abiding gun owner. My issue with the tyranny of the government thing that they always put up, we got to be armed against the tyranny of the government. And Biden's right. You're going to need an F-22
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Raptor.
dude. They can find you you could be in the second floor bathroom of your house. They'll use infrared, find you, and drone your ass. I'm sorry, but if you think you're beating the government these days, you're not.
You're not.
But the other thing is, AR-15 is a pea shooter compared to what they have.
Yeah, it's only good against locals. And what has happened is they have been so psychotically fixated on the tyranny of the government that they're going to fight back against, which by the way, the founding fathers were not talking about our own government. They were talking about the king coming back, and that king loyalists within their own government.
This is where I can get into this stuff. The Second Amendment, very specifically, which is why they talked about well-regulated
militia.
They always leave out is they were making it clear that the federal government could not tell states that they couldn't raise their own militia because the federal government didn't have a standing army at the time. So it's different states. There's the Shays Rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion. Yeah. They put those down by what? Having a well-regulated militia in the states that were able to raise arms.
A National Guard.
So it was literally
became the National Guard.
Right. It was the exact opposite of what these assholes claim. It was to put down rebellions and stop crazy Oklahoma City-like militias.
You know this.
That was the point.
Yeah, because, being Kentucky adjacent as you are, I'm sure you're well aware that Mitch McConnell, working in the state capitol as much as he did and being around it in Frankfort, Kentucky, the town I grew up in, way out in the sticks outside of it. But basically, that's where I went to high school, a little bit in middle school, has an armory. And the armory is downtown. The old Frankfort Armory is where you kept your guns when you came to town.
That's right.
When you moved into fucking Frankfort, the capital of Kentucky, you turned over your fucking guns and they stored it in the armory, and you could come get it to hunt, and you could come get it to, if you needed it, if they called you up, but they stored it there. You talk about like not having a thumb or an eye scan lockbox next to your fucking bed. You had to take a fucking horse ride into town near the Capitol, within like walking distance of the Capitol, to pick up your fucking gun to be allowed to use it. And that was under the same constitutional authority. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason there was a shootout at the OK Corral initially was because Tombstone had the same laws, and the Earp brothers, along with Doc Holliday, went over to the OK Corral to enforce those laws, because it was understood, and you can watch documentaries on this or the movies or whatever. I love Tombstone as a movie because Val Kilmer's portrayal of Doc Holliday is amazing. But if you watch the stuff, it's very straightforward, which is they knew that if people brought guns into town where there was drinking and gambling and women, there were prostitutes, guess what? That was bad for business, because they knew guys would get drunk and shoot each other and do stupid shit. They knew back then you don't want guys bringing guns into places where there's alcohol and all that. So what did we do more recently, the last 15 years in the United States? All these states passed laws so you can bring guns into bars, because it's a fucking genius idea. That's what you want. You want somebody. I mean, again, there was a purpose to all of this, and the difference is when you're talking about these guys that are registered and licensed and whatever, but most of them have not even gone through background checks because only about 18, 19 states require it. And if they have gone through background checks for themselves to get a gun, they didn't even really have to get a real license because nobody is able to require that, even though we should. And we don't do what other places, Canada, the Scandinavia, that allow people to have personal ownership of guns do, which is psychological tests, yearly tests to make sure you still know how to use the weapon. All these things, red flag laws like we have in some states, but we haven't been able to pass nationally. The kinds of things you do to make sure people are psychologically on the up and up and they're not a threat to their fellow citizens. And they also don't allow concealed carry, which of course we do in an insane way, because they realize that you taking your gun out into the public square is a threat to my family.
Yeah, and this is a picture. That's the armory burned down in a fire in Frankfurt a long time ago. And by the way, this is now the area around this grassy area is now downtown Frankfurt. So there's like buildings all around this thing, which is hilarious. But that's how old this building is. This is the second one. They built this one again after the first one, which was, a regular like stone and wood building. They made it like almost like a prison. And it is now the Kentucky National Guard and Military Museum because that's what it was designed, as a military building. Right. But it has turret spots on the top and it has all this shit. So you'd get, if there was ever, the king ever showed up with his fucking redcoats again, you'd run inside, everybody ride there, and then you'd climb up on the fucking roof and you'd shoot at everybody from the fucking roof because that's what it was for. And your gun stayed there. And if you wanted to go hunt, you went and picked up your gun. Make all the musket balls you want, get all the black powder you want, but you can't get the gun unless you let somebody in town know that you're going hunting. That's where like hunting permits came up because guys used to, before they made you check your gun, and in areas where they didn't make you check your gun, people would just fucking kill all the livestock and there wouldn't be any. They'd just kill it. They'd run out of stuff. So
we could go on. I mean,
there's a bunch of reasons why people had to check their fucking guns. Right.
Right. I mean, concealed carry was they knew it. It was even a line from a Texas judge. I'm trying to remember what it was about that, knowing that concealed carry meant that someone meant to commit an act of harm. And like it was banned in Texas, Wyoming, Ohio, Kentucky, all sorts of other places in the 19th century when we had a Supreme Court that looked back to the original purpose of our founding documents and didn't make up out of whole cloth some individual right to carry around fucking, a shoulder-launched missile and other bullshit like this. I mean, the Supreme Court...
In case the government decides to get tyrannical while you're at Kroger's.
Right. Which, again, is nothing to do with that. It was all about, as you pointed out, stopping the king externally, and yes, it was about stopping being prepared if you were attacked by Native Americans externally, which was a threat to them. You could make the argument for good reason, but I won't get into the whole politics of it. I'll just say
I would argue that there's a mix because you were like again. I would suggest to everyone go read up on the Deerfield massacre, and nothing will introduce you to the complexity of settlers moving in. And the idea that somehow if the Algonquin or the Iroquois or something crossed Lake Michigan and stole a tribe's land, which they did on multiple occasions, somehow that was cool. But if a bunch of Puritan people that are white, spoke a different language, came over and did it, they're extra evil because the water was salty between where they came from and where
it's a whole lot of issues that
bullshit.
We mix up these days. And, when we try to say that everything, I'm not going to get into that, but everything, that one group does is bad, as opposed to we've all been evil assholes since the dawn of time, nobody has exceptions.
Yeah, right. Nobody has a lineage, though. No human being on this lineage.
Nobody has clean hands.
Right.
And there's I'll just say this, again, I don't want to get into some whole thing, especially, whatever, but there's a reason that almost 1% of us, I think it's just under 1% of us, can trace DNA to Genghis Khan. And because he did lots of bad stuff. And I'm sorry, he wasn't a white dude. It doesn't mean I'm defending white dudes.
And his sons did worse than he.
Shit. Right.
He did bad stuff. Yeah. And his sons did worse than he. Right.
And some dudettes have done horrible things. And I'll just finish the whole sort of, at least from we can keep talking about it, but my perspective on the gun thing by just saying, if you think that the Supreme, I hated it on that issue, but it's like, well, this, Second Amendment, blah, 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 like they take what this corrupted Supreme Court said as if it means anything. And my answer to you is then accept what they say about voting rights, accept what they say in Citizens United about anybody can spend anything or whatever, accept what they say about Roe and Dobbs. Mm-hmm. If you're going to accept their view on guns, then accept their view on all these other issues they're fucking wrong on. Or let's be consistent. They're wrong and they're cheating and being corrupt on all of them.
Well, and I mean, we could like go for ages on just like the abject hypocrisy of every alleged belief in freedom they have and how they then set to govern, like on every level. Yep. And again, I go back to, and I said it, at the Sexy Liberal show this weekend, that, the Roe fight that everybody's angry about was not lost 2 years ago. It was lost in 2016 when Donald Trump had the ability to replace, people, by the way, with bullshit artists, people who said, no, settled law, Roe is off the table. That's not what I'm here to do. It was not only was it what they were there to do, it was almost entirely all they were there to do.
And again, it never should have. Look, they won 6-3 in the end. It's hard to figure, does Trump win? I mean, there's a lot of counterfactuals that are hard to go back and do. But one that's really easy to do is these guys were able to find a way to make the Supreme Court and their stupid term about activist judges, which is exactly what they are, into this thing, right? There's simply no way that they should have been able, when Scalia died, to delay for a year putting somebody on the court. And that we sat there, ignored it, and decided we're just going to run a normal presidential campaign. Again, that was part of me when I talk about going on offense over. Yeah. They should have been getting beaten over the head for tearing apart our Constitution and ignoring people's rights to a full Supreme Court. We should have been doing that every day.
Well, there was a simple answer. There was such a simple answer to the Republicans at that point, because we were close to an election. They said, let the voters decide or whatever. I'm like, motherfucker, they did. They decided in the last election that during the time this guy is president, if there's going to be a replacement on the Supreme Court, he will get to appoint him from day one to the last day.
And February of the last year,
we're honoring the vote. We're honoring the one that actually already happened and actually already went that way.
Right, and you don't get to go 11 months, which is what they did in the end, without putting somebody. If we had and I don't want to go back, I'm not trying to insult anybody personally or whatever, but if we had a narrative that pointed out back then that they were attacking democracy, which they already were, and they were attacking our freedoms, this would have fit into their narrative that they're cheating. They won't even allow Supreme Court Justice Barack Obama is the president of the United States. He gets to do this in our Constitution. They are ignoring, they're abrogating, they're tearing up, use your language, our Constitution, because that's who they are.
That also go to the language that you're talking about. Like, it's gotten smarter. Like, I got to say, Goldman and Moskowitz and Crockett and a bunch of the people on our team would not have allowed that to go, unanswered.
Nope.
Even the ones that maybe a bunch of them, that were there have learned their lesson. But all the new people are like,
I don't think anybody you just said was there.
Way. Right? No, they weren't. But I'm saying some of the ones that were. Certainly wouldn't be suck. You won't get fooled again. But the right. But the
well done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, fool me once. Won't get fooled again. I always wish he'd said right after that. By comparison,
the fact that he's almost charming compared to what we have now is frightening enough, because he was evil and terrible, and in the bottom 5 or 6 presidents of all time, we just actually now have somebody who's literally the bottom.
Oh, and let's talk about that in our last 15 minutes together. But I want to remind everybody, youtube.com/@CliffsEdge. There's an underscore there between Cliff's Edge. Subscribe today. Just do it. Doesn't cost you anything. Same with this channel. Just subscribe. Share the show. Share both of them out, because he and I have been screaming into the wind, trying to convince people of this for a long time. And wonderfully, they are finally coming around. The sad part is that it took someone as god awful as Donald Trump before they listen, and the damage to women's rights is already done. And let me tell you, the Republicans right now, because they're looking at the polls, it looks like the House is going our way. There's a bunch of purple districts.
There's a couple Senate seats, which is amazing. Like Rick Scott in Florida and Ted Cruz in in Texas, and now
Texas.
you probably saw the stunt by Josh Hawley trying to go up to Lucas Kunz in Missouri. That listen, if you know this stuff and you follow this stuff, you know there's simply no way Josh Hawley does that unless his polling is telling him he's in deep fucking trouble.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
So
because it's going that way, what they are relying on is the power of the anonymous hold, because you can strip a right away pretty easily. All you got to do is get a Amy Coney Barrett and a Brett Kavanaugh on there. And once they're on there, they will do it. But reinstating that right, reestablishing that right, codifying a law, getting it passed through both houses, and then getting it signed by the president is really difficult, especially when one senator can just decide they're going to put an anonymous hold in committee on it and never even admit they're the one that's doing it.
And what we did is they would do that with judges, for example. I don't know if the anonymous holds how it works exactly constitutionally, but this would be a classic example of what we've talked about. While they were, even long after, they did not allow us to have a vote on a Supreme Court justice while Obama was president, we still respected this stupid blue slip or whatever it's called thing where where the home state senator, even if it was a Republican, had to unofficially, or whatever, say it was okay for us to nominate a judge who, even if we had controlled the Senate and we had the president, we would still allow one senator from that state who was a Republican to say, no, you can't do that. As opposed to, how about fuck you, we're going to do it. I mean, again, these are the things that used to drive me crazy. There still are a few of them. Dick Durbin, is the one who still, I don't know how he's running judiciary. I don't know. I mean, the fact that there aren't, him and Merrick Garland, there aren't 10,000 more investigations going on. Well, these guys are trying to impeach Biden again, and they're making up bullshit again, and they're, Comer and a bunch of clowns, and we're not even going after these guys for real abuses. I mean, this entire Supreme Court right now, it should be demanded that they show up and testify about all their various corruptions, and when they refuse to, inevitably, is when that battle should start. And guess what? We'll win that PR battle.
Yep.
But we just don't even. We still have Durbin is one of the only one I would say at this point. The other ones who are older, who were conflict averse, who wouldn't fight in 2016. We've moved on, but Durbin's the last one who just needs to move on. Unless
he's also one of the guys
who's going to fight the fucking fight.
Right. He's also one of the guys who went after Biden fastest. That's there's a through line in that shit that they're giving a lot more. It's one thing to go, we need to listen to people of the other side in the other party because everybody should have a say and they represent a big chunk of the electorate and that kind of. It's fine. I have no problem with comity in the House and in the Senate, but there's another thing where you're kind of deferential to it in a weird way, and it like the way Bob Menendez is deferential to Egypt. It gets questionable,
and apparently Donald Trump too.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the minute that it should have happened long before that because they were pulling shit with judges and filibustering all of our judges to try to, but the minute they pulled that shit in 2016 should have been the minute that literally the only thing we were going to do at that point is follow the Constitution. Every unwritten nicety and norm about, the blue slips and, we'll let you have a vote, whatever, it should have been like, fuck you, they are gone. Yeah. We are not allowing you to do anything anymore. Yeah. If you're going to try to steal a Supreme Court justice, all bets are off on everything. Right. So you might as well tell all your judges who are going to vote on to go home. And again, we should have started, I would say, robust impeachment hearings at that time. We knew plenty about Clarence Thomas and whatever. We should have made it clear that there would be a price to pay if they were going to not allow a vote to happen on one of our judges. And and we've learned since, and we knew it then, I'm sorry, there was so much dirt behind Clarence Thomas that if you honestly had started the investigation in 2016 and said, that's how we're going, you don't let us put our judge on there, okay. If we'd gone after them and started publicizing all this stuff about him, we could have destroyed them. Well, I'm so glad to see it now, but it's just that it took so long. You do have to bring it up, and
that's another situation. There. That's another situation where the Republicans rely on the racial dynamics of the Democratic Party. That we are more open and respectful of people's race, and we are more willing to give deference to groups that have been marginalized and the like. And we make that as one of our raison d'etres as a party, and all that stuff. So Clarence got more deference than he deserved because Republicans used that as a crowbar. They picked a dude who was going to rubber stamp Scalia. They knew it, and because he was black, they knew that it would be a harder attack line for Democrats. Not for them. If he didn't get in, they'd have found somebody else, and they didn't give a shit. They don't care about him.
But
they just
take
want
it on. It's a fight we had to have. I mean, he, frankly, even on a few decisions where there's only one dissent, and some of them were insane back then. It's
another example of make your enemies
he was to the right of Scalia. He's ridiculous.
See, I don't, and even then, he is a ridiculous person, I think, on all merits. But it's hard to tell what he's actually for because it just seems like he's for
getting paid is what he's for.
Yeah, he's a rubber stamp. And I mean, I guess maybe there's no more laissez-faire capital right wing in the world than that, right? Bribery is in and of itself, it's a tip. And no tax on tips to Trump meant, Menendez would walk. That wasn't a bribe, it was a tip. Thanks.
And when you create a system like Citizens United, you make it that much more impossible to discern what's an actual bribe and what's not. Because much of that garbage that goes on might as well be called bribes because it is.
Right. Yeah. There's a
we've gotten to a better place. That's what's important, Hal. But we need to finish the job. And again,
I'll tell you why. Because technology bulldozed it. No, technology bulldozed it. It didn't matter. The irony about Citizens United, that if it had shown up in 91, if that law had been passed while Reagan was president or Bush won, we wouldn't have had a Democratic president for probably 24 years until something was righted or they collapsed so horribly because they don't know how to run an economy. But that would have given them so much fucking leverage because the technology of, say, YouTube and alternative media and independent media and all that stuff had not come up as a
ability to raise money online from small donors, that changed everything.
Ads on television mattered so much more then. You could buy your way in front of people's eyeballs in a way that was a zero-sum game. You could knock somebody out of the view of the constituent that way, right? Whereas now you just fucking can't. There's just no way you can. There's too many holes in the dike. You can't put your thumb in all the holes, and that's.
It's actually really fascinating.
Ironically, it didn't do much.
The digital spending right now, what's planned to not only did Kamala Harris and Tim Walz just make a huge buy, but numerous Senate candidates. I saw something in one of the newsletters, I think from Courier Journal. That they do good work of putting out real journalism. And it just showed we are destroying them. They don't seem to get digital media at all. And I mean, the people now are not just sitting there watching Channel 4. They're out there watching anything from Netflix to YouTube to TikTok to this to that. And I mean, we're killing them in all of that. And it's good to see that we're going, as somebody who's been an ad writer in the past, that we're actually taking our ads to where the eyeballs are and where people are. So it's tactics and strategy.
And again, I think that's always been a necessary part of messaging. Find your voters, find the people who might be convincible, get your ads there, work out the best message to get that across to them, and go. But in the old days, pre-Citizens United, pre-YouTube and that kind of shit, you could also at the same time run blocker against the other party. If you bought the ads, they had no place else to go. And so
no, I know.
Right? And now if you throw everything in traditional media, they'll just throw everything in independent media. If you throw everything in independent media, they'll bury you on CNN ads and buy that stuff up.
And independent media is honestly endless at this point. So it's really hard for them to even do that.
Even figure out how to.
So many places you can advertise that they can't corner a market in that way. I mean, how many YouTube channels are there? I mean, obviously some are much bigger than others, but point being, there's just it's an endless amount of space out there. Same with cable, same with you can't do it the same way they used to do it. And so you're right. But so a few things in that way have worked out to our advantage, and we've gotten a little bit lucky in the timing of certain things. But I would just say we're ready. We've got the crew at this time. We've got you brought up earlier what Walz is doing about freedom. I mean, essentially, by making that argument about staying the hell out of his business, he's making the argument to take freedom back, which is a word Republicans have used and abused forever when they're for just the opposite. Their freedom is, again, an anarchist, like, a child throwing a tantrum. I feel like doing this, and they're like, okay, you can do that. Don't get a vaccine. Don't pay your taxes. The word freedom that the rest of us have as part of people who are believe in the social contract, believe in democracy, believe in what we live in. That we don't just get to do any little thing we want. We have certain responsibilities that come with that, and that is freedom. Is that you have a responsibility to not endanger your neighbor or your kids or your country or whatever. And so I just everything they're doing, again, we still have places to improve, but we've moved light speed ahead of where we were even 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, and I remember being excited when we got. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like it was interesting because there was a theory that the RNC being first would because of Biden's showing and all that kind of stuff, that this was just going to set them on a glide path to the election, right? And they weren't even going to have to work. And so Trump, the lazy loser that he is, hashtag lazy loser, that he is, was
weird
like,
too, kind of weird.
This is fucking sweet. Like, I'll golf and just bullshit my way back into the White House.
Eat KFC, crispy wings, and watch Fox and Friends in a loop all day. It's amazing. So, yeah, it's stunning. And then, and everybody was flipping out and all that stuff, and they're like, oh dear God. And I was like, I kept telling everybody, and the audience will back me up on this. I was like, look, never underestimate Trump's ability to fuck up a free lunch. And there is no way he's going to be president again. But apparently, the Lord above, in his almighty graciousness, preserved his life so that he could not only, instead of losing to a white guy slightly older than him, who he thinks he has the edge on, he now gets to lose to a woman of color, and the first woman of color ever elected president. Because God's sense of karmic disaster is so much more finely tuned even than ours. The Lord works in mysterious, I would say hilarious ways. Yes. And more hilarious than mysterious. And just to remind folks, like, the Biden debate was horrible, right? It would not have had the effect on polling and on people's views if the media hadn't saturation covered that for weeks and been as irresponsible as the New York Times and Washington Post.
Wait, it still didn't.
Which, by the way, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that, which is, and I would say again, because I just always like to repeat this line: if you're subscribed to either of those two pieces of shit, unsubscribe. Philly Inquirer, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Hal's channel, my channel, all the independent media out there, far better. Okay, but even after all of that, the aggregators people don't understand that, like, polling is snapshots in time. Things change. Biden, it wasn't as quick as he was before. It's going to be harder for him to make the argument to come back. But I would still tell you, even with all of that in there, all the surrogates he was going to have, the fact that his convention wouldn't be a shit show, it would be something that would be well organized and produce counts. I will tell you, even like all the aggregators, he's the incumbent, which is a huge advantage. You can propose laws like the reform of the Supreme Court or the courts that he's proposed and the meetings he's had with foreign leaders. You have some effect on the economy. The economy is doing really well. Your opponent is a felon. These are all sort of factors that matter to people beyond just the polling right now. And even at that lowest moment, what people don't get, you went to an aggregator that took all of this into account, like 538. They still had Biden at a 53 to 47% chance of winning, right? The danger at that point was coming in states that Biden was performing very badly in, outside of the key swing states like Montana and whatever, where we could lose Senate seats. But he still was in a position where he likely would have won. Since Kamala's come in, I'm just going to say to folks so they understand, remember how polls were, from anywhere from the midterms to the Swazi race in New York, that congressional race, to like a million different state house races where they'd be like, Democrats are very close, or the abortion vote here, it could go either way, and then we win by 15 points. These polling firms have still not learned how to reach Gen Z. They still haven't learned how to reach a sample enough of minority voters so that these polls are accurate. So what I'm telling you right now is you can't give up. You have to do every single thing you can do every day. You need to donate, call, knock doors, everything, convince people, whatever. But I'm telling you that right now, even with Kamala up 5 to 7 in these polls, and in most of the swing states up between 2 and 4, even up 2 in a couple polls in North Carolina, I'm telling you, they're undercounting her support. And I mean, right now, if we can keep in this direction, it's set to be a landslide. But the thing about that you need to know is you don't just say, oh, okay, now I don't have to do anything. It has to be a landslide because we have to take those Senate seats, because if Kamala wins and we don't have a Senate to get enough of the senators to get rid of a filibuster, then it's a holding pattern until they come back in. We need national laws against gerrymandering. Like, we need national law to protect everybody's right to vote. They can't do these huge vote purges they're on here in Ohio and Florida and places they control, states they control right now. Like, if we do not make sure, I mean, obviously we need Roe, to be put into law.
Codified,
we need universal background checks, climate law. I'm not saying there's climate change legislation. There's a lot of stuff we need, but the basics of democracy, of making sure everybody who wants to vote, who is a citizen, can vote easily, without a hassle, without anything, to make sure that gerrymandering isn't making it so these representatives are picking their voters as opposed to the opposite, so that if it wants to, Puerto Rico can become a state, DC certainly can become a state, and we can start undoing the damage of the fact that South Dakota, North Dakota, and every other place with three people and a cow gives Republicans 2 Senate votes. Like, we need to win in a landslide. Because we need that Senate big. That's
agreed. I will say Puerto Rico will become a state. That I think is in the cards, probably in less than a decade. DC never will.
But it should be immediate. We should fight for that immediately. And frankly, in a time where there shouldn't even be territories, the fact that we have territories, like same thing with the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Right.
The U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, they should be states. I'm sorry, you don't have territories. We're not this is not white man's burden from the 1850s, all right?
Right, that I agree.
The 21st century.
The Virgin Islands, Guam, and Puerto Rico should absolutely be states. It would solve a lot of things. Although the creation of Guam as a state as opposed to a territory will be seen by China and maybe even North Korea, Mongolia as a major shift, in the same way that Trump recognizing the Golan Heights was what triggered.
I'm not saying this is easy. We have to try to work it all out, and maybe in some cases it doesn't. But this should be our plan and our goal to bring some balance back to the Senate, so that they can't just have these places where cows and sheep live that get 2 senators. They have about 8 states like that like 5 humans live in, and
that's
LA
why we have a North and a South Dakota and a North and a South Carolina, when materially they don't have the people to deserve it, or even the space to deserve it. And as a matter of fact, it would be a lot easier if there was just Dakota. The state of Dakota.
Why don't you think DC will have it?
Because it's a state, it's a city state, not a actual state, and it's covered under Virginia as a it can have Commonwealth ruling under that. They have a say in their local taxation, just like every other state does already as a city. It's because city taxes are what they are, but it's where the Capitol is, and the Pentagon is, and the White House is, and the underground of it, and sealing having to go to to a state Senate effectively, like you have to do when the president comes to Illinois for a fucking convention. Every time they cross the city would be absurd. Deferring to that, it would end up being a super state as a power. Because they would have Kentucky is has way more power than it deserves because of Mitch McConnell being the leader of the Republicans, and at that point, so they artificially got pushed to the front of the line, because he had a say, so they were able to get more stuff than other more populous states, other states that needed it more. Because of that leverage, DC as a state would have more leverage over the federal government than any other state or city, because you would have to negotiate with them for every movement of the government. Not going to happen. What you would do is
then you have to figure out a way for
federalize it as a capital.
With Virginia, then.
Yeah, federalize it as a capital, and then everybody who lives there, their taxation about schools and other stuff that does not involve the substructure of the infrastructure of the city, because that's handled by the government. They have one of the best. They have the best internet in the world. They have the best. If they got broken roads or something like that, that's a danger to our to the president of the United States. So they get fixed pretty quick. So they don't need to worry about that the way other states do. Toledo has to worry about its roads and streets and sewage and all that kind of shit in a way that DC residents will never have to do.
So I would just argue that people have to. people have to have the right to vote for a voting representative and 2 senators. And so if DC is unable to be separate, then at least the neighborhoods in DC have to be thrown in with Virginia, and then Virginia would cease to be a swing state. And I'd be fine with that too.
And that's how you do it. You declare that on a federal level, the DC residents vote when they vote for Senate. They vote for a Virginia senator, or you can even split it because it's Virginia and Maryland. You could split it. One Senate, they half the city votes at whatever line it is. Vote. If you're on this side of town, you're voting with Virginia. If you're on this side, you're voting for Maryland. Do that, and you would still get the benefit of those voters, but you don't have to upend the entirety of it, and you don't have these people who will stand in the way of it forever and ever and ever.
If you do that, and you can still add other territories, Virginia's no longer a swing state, good, and other territories that we're talking about, get senators, because again, there's the argument based on reality, which is they deserve it. And it's ridiculous to not have that representation. And then there's the argument that helps Democrats, which is, again, Republicans have made sure every goofball that lives in some state nobody lives in can vote. These are places that have real people and real issues, and somebody who's terrific like Stacey Plaskett, but represents the U.S. Virgin Islands, so she doesn't get a real vote, is ridiculous. She's proven how brilliant she is involved in it. So, that has to change. And even if you just change that and we were able to add 6 more or something like that, U.S. senators, that would help even out some of the advantage, undo some of the advantage they have by having these states where, like Wyoming and Idaho, where nobody lives.
Doing that requires, though, undoing that uneven senatorial spread. That's the irony of it. Because, again, you can have Republicans can jack that shit up for as long as they want. And as long as they get to say they're trying to disenfranchise all the flyover states, because that's how they'll talk about it, it will give one senator, a Rand Paulish kind of person, the right and political weight to be the person who stood in the breach to make sure that the U.S. federal government and the Democrats and all the big cities don't steamroll people in flyover. That's how they're going to frame it. That's how they've done it before.
Again, we are the majority. We've won the majority in the presidential vote every time, other than 2004, since 1988, even in 2004, with Iraq and everything else George W. Bush had going for him. He barely won in the smallest win by an incumbent since Woodrow Wilson, the smallest win in 100 years by an incumbent. So we have the majority on our side. Let Rand Paul open his big fucking mouth, as he often does. I'm willing to have that fight to point out that real Americans live in the U.S. Virgin Islands and the Northern Marianas and in Guam and in Puerto Rico. And let's have that argument. And
real Americans live.
Senators.
Yes, real Americans live in all these states. And I've said many times that if every Democrat in this country voted every time, we wouldn't even have to have this conversation, because all these red states, many of them would be, a lot of the red states would be more purple, because people would, they'd have to recognize there's a bigger group of Democrats out there that they have to reference when they're running. So you can't run a Marjorie Taylor Greene in a crossover district. You can only do it in a deep red district. But the people that are in deep red districts go, what's the fucking point? And they don't vote. And therefore it gives the illusion of an automatic mandate to people. And then they can act like they could just, it's all
I'm going to tell you this. Everything moves because, again, I'm here right now. I'm watching our lawless piece of shit Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, loser, who came in 3rd in the Senate primary. Good job, bud. Sit there and purge people and say, if you didn't vote 2 elections in a row. I had to miss it. I voted in every election in my life but one election, a mayoral election here, a year or 2 after I moved to Cincinnati. There was a pretty good reason. My dad died, and I was on a plane back to New York City on election day. Okay, so I missed one. What if I'd missed another for some random reason, for something pretty important in my life? They could purge me. And they're sitting there purposely with Democrats. They're doing it right now in Georgia. They're doing it right now in Texas. The point is that if we get enough of the Senate, if we turn out in big enough numbers this time to get rid of the filibuster and have universal voting rights, imagine every state we're talking about right now shifting 3 to 5 points to the left. Right away, Florida is a swing state / lean Democratic state. Ohio is a swing state / maybe lean Democratic state. Texas, same deal. Other states that we've lost, like Missouri and others, have gotten out of our reach, are back to being maybe lean Republican swing states. It moves everything.
Yeah. So, and again, you have to, then you get back to people who have to They may get elected as Republicans. They may get elected as Democrats, but they got to be deferential to the other voters in their district, because it's not just to run away the illusion that it's this fucking extremist ideology, where even what passes for conservative ideology is like off the fucking res, borderline sovereign citizen, Moors
nutbag stuff.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Or on the left, like black bloc, Marxism, that idea that somehow floats as what the majority of the people there live in that district do, which is absolutely idiotic. But those are the people who pick the primaries in some of these places. They get increasingly nuttier as time goes on, because they're only listening to that cul-de-sac of lunacy.
Correct.
And then they don't represent anybody else. If everybody votes every time, no matter what, that's why I'm for everybody voting. Everybody vote.
One of the things I would do is have universal voter registration. You turn 18, you're like a lot of countries do. You're automatically registered, and then we can push people to vote. But the point is there are a whole lot of people right now. There are going to be a couple million Democrats who are going to have their votes stolen this coming election. Not stolen from a machine or from whatever, because they're going. They'll end up voting. They'll end up doing the provisional votes. Some of those will get counted. But some of these folks may just say, I don't want to go through the fucking hassle. I have to wait in that line for provisional votes and not do it. I know they should. It's democracy. But the point is, their game is making it as difficult as possible. Our game should be making it as easy as possible.
I agree.
Universal voting. And I promise you that a whole lot of states, that even like a state that's a swing state that leans Democratic, like Michigan right now or Pennsylvania, off the board for them. They'll almost never be able to compete there again. States like Ohio and Florida, swing states again.
Agreed. They have to actually argue their point, which will be a lot healthier. So before we went a little bit over, and I appreciate it.
Sorry about that. I got a big mouth,
okay. No, me too. YouTube.com/@CliffsEdge right there. You can see it on the URLs on the screen. Before you go, I want to show you a little, because Cliff, everything old is new again. And when it comes to Donald Trump, everything's a fucking reboot. I'd like to show you a little chestnut from our dear friend and the current owner of my future desk after the yard sale that's going to happen, a fellow by the name of Alex Jones. Who,
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah. So this is Alex. This is Alex Jones saying that the Democrats. We've only got 78 days left until Democrats put him and everybody that listens to him in a FEMA camp. Check this out. So,
and he's a historian. He's done the research probably more than I have, and I'm getting chills right now. Ladies and gentlemen, there's Democrats all over the place saying they're going to put us in camps. They built COVID camps as the cover. Raskin says they're going to have a civil war. Do you understand they're planning this? They're going to do a big-ass cyber attack and take us all off the air. We got 78 days left of the election, and then 79 to that, and I feel sick just sitting here waiting for it to happen. There needs to be absolute, total urgency. You heard Naomi Wolf, former top Democrat strategist, said they got foreign troops from China, martial law, arrest everybody, totally take over, and she's totally awake now.
Yeah, she's totally awake now.
Yeah. So do I understand? Do we have troops from China who are going to do this for us?
You're right to be confused.
So Donald Trump, the guy that has sold every product in the history of products that he's sold, all were sold in China, and we found out after he's president he had a Chinese bank account. We found out about after he was president, and we found out that his dumbass Secretary of State had an investment in a Chinese technology company, Pompeo. I can go on with the China, connections. Oh well, Mitch McConnell's wife, her father was a roommate of one of the elite communist.
Her fucking sister died in a Tesla that shifted into reverse and drove her into a fucking pond, and it took her 7 minutes to drown on Mitch and Elaine Chow's fucking ranch in Texas.
Interesting. So here's
3 months ago.
Right. Their China connections go on and on. So how the Chinese troops would come here to fight for us, I don't really get. Trump is because who has said Taiwan, they can take Taiwan. I think they like Trump. And then I'll add to that, just to be very clear, putting Alex Jones in a camp would be like the most expensive. To feed and house that guy, you would need like 2 king-size beds, and you would need enough food to feed 4 humans, and just the odor. I don't know that he doesn't understand that he's not worth it. I don't want to spend the money on him.
Yeah. Granted, there will be a bunch of people who, perhaps there used to be camps, I think, back in the 40s and 30s that people would go to that he could probably benefit from, if you know what I mean. But now we have Ozempic.
Exactly. Now he's Ozempic, so he can spend half his time eating and half his time on the toilet, which is pretty much representative of everything he says anyhow. So it works.
Yeah, that is the show. That's the show. Yeah. So Nancy says Alex Jones acts like he is on drugs. He is. I guarantee he's on the same blaze of Adderall and Sudafed and caffeine and whatever their mix is. No question.
Yeah. They found a unique cocktail. It seems to make them all have to wear diapers too.
I'll tell you what it does. Not him apparently, because I don't think he's shit in 10 years. That's what happened to him. He's literally full of shit. He's clogged up. That's not fat.
He's growing.
He's literally full of shit. Yeah, but
you know what? They all got together and they said, "Look, Rush Limbaugh's dead. We need a new, huge, drug-addicted fat fuck to spout all sorts of idiocy. Alex Jones, you're nominated." And that's, or maybe he ate Rush Limbaugh's. Okay, I'll stop.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna find out in a little bit that Alex Jones ate Owen Schroyer. I haven't seen him on the show in a while. Why is he so bloated? Apparently he's allergic to Alex Schroyer. Really? So they had to stop working together? No, he ate him and found out it was a food allergy.
Shellfish or a peanut allergy. He was allergic to them.
Yeah. Owen Schroyer is 20% peanut, and he didn't know ahead of time. Fuck me. So I will say this about, and it's very clear, and this is not about people who have ADHD and use ADHD drugs for their ADHD. Hear me now. That's not who I'm talking about.
People who abuse them.
I'm talking about people who use it off-label for studying and whatever stuff like they talk about on college campuses and tech bros do it and all that kind of shit. It makes you racist. Hear me out. What is focus but pattern recognition? Anything I'm working on stays within the focus. Anything I'm not working on, I can exclude. And that's why it's used for study. That's why it helps you do stuff. It keeps you from getting distracted. Well, life is full of genuine organic distraction. There are a lot of different signals that say one thing is not always the fucking same, right? Life fills you with this. But if you get fixated, a combination of Ritalin or Adderall or any of those things, and or the fucking alpha brain shit that Joe Rogan sells, and Twitter and the focus of the algorithm of Twitter or TikTok, for example, where you believe that that's not a curated algorithm but a window to the world.
That's reality, right?
Yeah, that you have. What you've done is you've taken somebody with a normal scope. What Adderall does is like you've got a fucking peripheral lens that's way too high, and so you can't do anything. So it narrows it back to human. Right? Where you have the ability of a normal person to be able to exclude things and include things back, and you could function. When you don't have that, it still does its job, and it narrows it like this. And that's why they use it. That's why coders use it, because it's a singular issue. You don't need friends. You don't need entertainment. You just put on some fucking, like funk music, and you just code all fucking day because it hyper narrows what you're doing. Right? That's what it does. And when you look through Twitter and you're looking at fucking Jordan Peterson refreshing in your fucking thing all the time or whatever, it trains your brain to be a bigot, because what is a bigot? But all black people act like this, all women act like this, all gay people act like this, and there's plenty of evidence that they don't. But your brain, normally
you focused on that slice of where people are saying they do, and
Yeah,
right.
and you if you exclude all the things that don't fit your what they where the rest of us deal with real cognitive dissonance when we're trying to work out our own character issues and our ethics, and we try to decide what matters about the character of a person versus what doesn't. That's what real people do. But this excludes that and basically trains their brain with like blinders. So it's like horse blinders. They put these on, and that's all they fucking see. And then you've got Elon Musk and X, like driving it to an even finer fucking point.
Almost like they're doing it on purpose, and it's sort of like psyops.
Well, I also think that I don't think, I gotta say, the people who use this shit online, who, and you can tell usually, because it's funny, because I speak very fast because I get very excitable.
Me too.
But it ebbs, but yeah, you do too. But it ebbs and flows. Like both of us can mitigate our pattern. And it's
right.
So you can see the normalcy of a person getting excited and talking very fast because they're trying to get their point across and you don't have a lot of time, and then back to we're talking normally. That's normal. When you talk like Ben Shapiro, that's not normal.
There's a lot not normal.
Yeah, right.
You shouldn't also be like 35 and not have reached puberty yet too. So
people have more like a jazz tempo in their talking. If you're doing this, if your tempo of talking is basically the same and it's always going this way and that way it go, and that's drugs. I don't fuck you. That's drugs. They're on drugs. That's drugs.
Yeah, of course.
And again, some people.
You're Don Jr. doing one of your late night videos.
Exactly. That's why he's fucking. And I swear to God, I think his eyes. This is just my own personal theory. I don't met the guy. I have no interest in meeting the guy. Fuck that dude. But I think his eyes are glassy because I think he smokes weed or drinks to take the edge off because I think he doesn't have like the aged, slowed down constitution of his dad. And when a person of his age does the same mix of whatever the fuck his dad is snorting, it makes, you've got natural energy plus that. Whereas
I think
if you don't have
snorting something a little bit stronger, even
that's possible
from some of the tirades he goes on. But
it doesn't. Here's what I'm telling you. It used to be that. It used to be that was the only thing. Yeah, Greg is saying Provigil, which is what what's her name? Amber Heard was on, and she used that as an excuse why she treated her staff like shit because it supposedly made her crazy or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Did it also make her poop on the bed or no?
I think that's just caffeine. I think you cannot drink coffee and jump on the bed. I don't know.
Anybody? Certainly not right afterwards. People should have learned that by now.
Right.
There's a cooling down period after caffeine we should all be aware of.
Yeah. You hear me? Joggers shitting in our alley. No, whatever. Coffee. I think. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah, there it is. This is probably my new favorite. This is so stupid. I don't know why this made me laugh because it's a fairly on the nose one or whatever. But this is my new favorite meme.
I can't even see it. What does it say?
It's very small. It says takes one sip of coffee and then it says the poop in my butt and it's got Batman poking his head up through a snowbank and it just says bonjour. It's so stupid. But it made me laugh so hard when I saw it online.
It's stupid, but it feels true. And that's the problem with it.
It's so stupid, but it's so true. I'm saving the image. Anyways, save
the image.
And I will send it.
I got to go have some caffeine now.
You got to go do it. Go do some work.
Please send that to me. Please send that to me.
That'll be the first thing I will. I'll put on shitter to you. Ironically enough. YouTube.com/Cliffs_Edge. So that whole thing, that Naomi Wolf thing that we kind of got off on the tirade about, the same, because that's the same shit that Alex is on. I would guess that's my presumption. That's my non-doc. Hey, do your own research. I'm not a doctor, but do your own research. Hey, and but the main thing about it is that FEMA camp bullshit that they're talking about rounding everybody up. That was supposed to happen 20 fucking years ago. That was during Bush. I know. One, I think,
I think we keep hearing that every 4 years, and it's like most of these people don't know. I mean, at least I think other people think like I do. Like, why would I want them in a camp? I don't want them anywhere near me. Right. I don't want to know where they are. I'd rather not even know they exist. Just go back into your holler, and go back to your unrunning water and live your shit-filled life. I don't even want to. Just stay away from me.
Mind your own business.
To pass policies that help you, even though you're an asshole, that help you economically. Otherwise, you're a bigot. Shut up and go back to your 18th century fucking homestead. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And let Batman peek out of your snow bank.
Right, your snowbank, as it were. Thank you so much, Cliff, and we will see you again very soon. Enjoy the DNC. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say, and we will be cross-posting about it, I have no doubt. I see a cross-posting.
I am quite sure.
Yeah, I insist. All right, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, buddy. Take care.
Cheers. All right, there he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Schechter. There you go. Cliff Schechter. Yeah. Cliff Schechter. All right. I did it. All right, I'll let you go. Bye. There he goes. He's just laughing in the background. I need, like, it wouldn't hurt. I'm working on this, and well, shit, I don't have time. Yeah, I do. Hold on. Chat room. Talk amongst yourself. I want to go get something and show you something that I just got when I went to the DNC, the little DNC store. So, show and tell. So, one of the things I got besides a T-shirt at the DNC pop-up store in Chicago was, yes, you do, Boston Brian. You need to come back on. Damn it. No, I'm not in Chicago. I'm back in Vegas because I've got to go to L.A. tonight because I'm doing the Jam tomorrow, and then I got to come back, and then I got to go to Knoxville on Friday. And Summer has COVID, so I can't even see her. So I was gonna I probably should have stayed there for your health. Anyways, so they were selling magnets, like this little pack of magnets, this little stack of them, like little refrigerator magnets, like that, this big, right? Okay, there's a little stack of them, and so you get them. And then a little stack of magnets, okay? All right, so the first one is this one. That makes sense. DNC, right there. It's a little weird with the 3 red lines. It's the red wave. It's odd, but whatever. It's part of the whatever. Okay, so DNC 2024, that's the first one. All right, next one is a donkey. That's totally fine. Makes total sense. Democrat, fridge magnet. Cool. Next one, vote. Sure, yeah, absolutely. I don't know why the E is red, but whatever. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's just easier to print, and it's fine. And you got red, white, and blue. That's the theme. Okay, here we go. Red, white, and blue. Next up, you got Chicago. Totally makes sense. Now we get to the Chicago portion. There's Illinois. Chicago's right up there. And apparently, if you squint, it looks like it's been nuked. Probably not the design-wise what they're going for, but that's fine. And then there's a L train. There's a L train. That's it. Just an L train. That's all there is. Just like it's going to hit you. It's very. Okay. And then deep dish pizza, which because it's red, white, and blue, looks like cheesecake with raspberry sauce on top of it and a blue crust. They're starting to lose me. I love you, but you're starting to lose me. It's deep dish, but that's cool. Then the Ferris wheel. On the Navy Pier, there's a Ferris wheel. Cool. They're back to kind of normal. Very hard to sell the red, white, and blue part of it because the blue is the lines, whatever. There you go. And finally, the bean, which looks like a macaroni. That's the big silver bean in Millennial Park. And is there a comet ping pong? No, that's if it was in DC. That's when that's for the inauguration. That's exactly right. So what I was worried at one point when I saw it. Hold on, whoops. I was worried that this was clearly the kidney. It haunts me wherever I go.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the takes one sip of coffee. Bonjour. Anyways, hit that like, by the way. We're in the second hour, and we'll look at some trends and what's going on right now. I have to say, I don't have to say it. I can say whatever I fucking want. That's independent media. That there is obviously like the biggest concern. I want to show you something. I'll see if I can find it in the. Yes, Lord. The kidney did a drive-by. There's they're live streaming the caucus meetings of the the DNC if you want to watch them. They're on the Democrats' YouTube channel. And then Trump is, I guess, going to be speaking in York, Pennsylvania, because he knows he's losing Pennsylvania, which is hilarious. And then, let's see. I'll have to look in the stuff that I've already looked at, which is history. There we go. That there were a few. Where are we? Yeah. Here, this is the funny one. Okay, so here we go.
The best.
1 second. So the way they are talking about the DNC happening and the protests that are occurring, a couple of points I would like to make. Never mind the fact that none of these motherfuckers were outside of the RNC. None of them were outside of Mar-a-Lago when Netanyahu was there, when Trump was telling him to fucking carpet bomb the place. Get it over with, get your victory, and get out. Does that sound like someone who's concerned with civilian deaths? Right. So fuck them, right? The weird part is that if you look at all the talk about the protests, there are a bunch of people obviously walking with Palestine signs. Well, by the way, while Biden is working on a ceasefire right fucking now. Right now. They're working on the ceasefire right fucking now. So they're already doing it. You stop drilling. You've struck oil. The other thing too is, and I have to say both to the quote hashtag uncommitted and the other voter, people like, I'm not going to vote for him because I can't, not one more bomb, not one more bullet or whatever. You're not going to vote for Trump, so you're just taking yourself out of the game. Your threat only works if you have someplace else to go. And if you just go to RFK Jr., for example, you're still going to be swamped by 80% of the disgruntled Trump voters. Won't matter. And what you're saying is that fuck women's rights. So, anyways, that said, I'm not going to vote for the first woman of color ever because I don't like the fact that the negotiations for a ceasefire are going slower than I think they should, because you could fix it that quickly? It's weird. It's just weird. Again, if Trump had a viable response, if he had an actual policy, and you're like, I believe in everything the Democrats do, but this thing is I'm a single issue voter, and if you don't, if you fuck with me, I'm going to go over to him because he's at least good on this. Neither of them are good on this. RFK Jr. and Trump have the same policy on it, which is just fuck it. Hey, Netanyahu, fill your boots, man. We'll look the other way till it's over. Same thing. They will do with both of them will do with Netanyahu what Trump would do with Putin. Thanks, Sally. Yeah, right. I'm just telling you, like that's just the reality. If he had a viable response, you'd actually have some place to you'd have leverage. But you can do something in this, and you can do nothing in this. And I got to tell you, if you're going to write somebody in, it just zeroes it out. Doesn't help. Doesn't hurt the Democrats because it doesn't help the Republicans. It's not going to happen. And if you vote for RFK Jr., again, just because he's an anti-Semite isn't going to be enough. He's still going to side with Netanyahu on whatever Netanyahu wants to do because they want it over. They don't want the problem of it during their presidency. They want him to wipe everybody out so you don't have to hear about it again. And they go back to some 68 borders or something or previous, and then they don't have to worry about it. I'm telling you. Okay, so here we go. This is what struck me as funny about how they're talking about the potential for people in protests turning violent in Chicago. Which, by the way, also mind your fucking manners. All right, here we go.
Nancy, we are told the Illinois governor has put members of the state's National Guard on standby, expecting these protests.
Now, real quick, I want you to pay attention to the crowd behind her. And these are people just protesting. By the way, I have no fucking problem with people protesting about any of these issues. Greg, the problem with, they keep thinking it's going to be Chicago 68 again. But again, the Democratic Party of 68 was the transitional party from the Dixiecrats to the modern Democratic Party. Those guys all left. The response to the 68 protests was that all the racist Dixiecrats became Republicans. How do you think we fucking lost the South in that regard? Because we lost those Democrats. And good riddance to bad rubbish. But those aren't the same people. And the idea that you would just do it as it's fucking Woodstock 98 or some shit is nonsense. But anyways, if you're protesting peacefully, go for it. The mix of flags is very interesting. So there's LGBTQ plus flags. There's regular LGBT flags. There's LGB flags. There's a person sitting on the cement. And then there's people kind of loitering. And then there's people holding... I'll show you as we go on. But you'll see. I know, Stu, I was just picking a number out of the hat. I didn't mean the actual one. I was just trying to do a reunion of Woodstock, kind of being silly. When they missed the first time. Sorry, anyways.
Yeah, they're expecting things could get bad. Of course, everybody is hoping for the best. The DNC has yet to start, but...
Yes, Hurricane 68 is what they're expecting. Does this not sound like a weather report? We're hoping that, maybe Donald Trump should just take a Sharpie and draw a different marching route.
We can tell you that DNC protests, they are now underway. Behind me, probably 200 to 300 protesters.
What? 200 to 300 protesters? Well, it is the second coming of 1968, clearly. 200 to 300. How many people are in Chicago in general? Also, not Chicagoans, by and large.
This is kind of like the appetizer of the protest.
Is it? It's an aperitif, really, if you think about it, because we have, in many ways, there is a, you can have an appetizer, or you can, if you just want to go straight to the meal, you can do that as well. I'm very happy to bring you over. We have a charcuterie board, which is, we both have a vegan charcuterie board, which is mostly leaves. Really, it's just a shovel with leaves in it to bring to your, but a little, and we have some of that almond cheese or whatever, but I don't know. Charlemagne, est-ce que le bouton le fragané s'est demandé quand 8 ans, moi j'étais quand l'air so, yeah? Oui. Sorry, we do not have any more of the almond cheese. We used it to patch a hole in the wall. It lasts longer than regular spackle, and it tastes the same. So anyways, we are speaking. You have to excuse me. I'm a little naughty about this because my people are from Wisconsin. So, yeah. Totally. But it is an aperitif, really, And then after the parade entirely, we have several choices. We have a sort of you can get an affogato, which is my favorite. It is espresso with ice cream, a scoop of ice cream in the middle of it, and you can walk around, you don't have to stay here. You can take it with you on the, into it like little secondary march, you can go a little one-person march down by the lake or something, do your own little one-person protest with a beverage. And then, and then you can go, and then we have basically a giant piece of pie. I don't recommend it. It's not very ambulatory. We do not have squeak. Yeah, no. Oh, no. We are out of escargot. I'm sorry. Apparently it did not rain yesterday, so we were not able to go out and look at on the sidewalk, And that's where we farm. We have a little farm, on the sidewalk. Outside the restaurant where we find these things, So, Anyways, have fun at the protest and remember our rules around here. No women, no kids. Okay. It's very good. So, Palestinian flag. This sign right here, you see it a bunch. It's a pre-printed sign. It's reproductive rights now. I got news for you. All the people with these signs don't give a fuck about the people with those signs. At all. Sorry, lady. Your uterus has to take a back seat. We live under the illusion that the United States can force another country to fight or not fight simply by, not arming them or arming them, as opposed to them just finding it someplace else or making their own shit. But since we live under that illusion, fuck you, lady, is basically the argument.
Protest action this week. These particular protesters, obviously pro-Palestinian.
Not obviously. No, ma'am. If you'll notice, there's a huge mix. That's what really stood out to me. Watch.
They're also saying they're fighting for reproductive rights.
Well, then, that again, not a lot of overlap in those rights right now, because the reproductive rights folks are for Democrats winning, and the pro-Palestinian people, I don't know what the fuck they're for. I'm dead serious. I don't know what you're fighting against. South Side has on always table. No. Fuck that dude. As
well as LGBTQ rights.
Yeah, about that. I am not the first person to point out that the Queers for Palestine folks, while I believe they mean well, obviously do it from a distance. It's sort of like a Queers for Palestine at arm's length. They should be allowed to live freely and stuff like that, but they certainly should not have control over your life because, no. That's they're not necessarily. I'm just picking. By the way, News Nation are silly, but this is kind of just general stuff that popped up in my feed as far as how they're covering this. I just want to show you the footage.
On this side, I want to show you that there's some heavy.
Look at that. Jeez, if this was more sparsely attended, it might be a Trump rally.
The equipment that the city of Chicago has put out, and that is to block Michigan Avenue, the bridge, and prevent protesters from marching up to the Mag Mile.
Get abortion pills by mail today. And she's got a little QR code. Good for you. So, I would argue, absolutely, that is a current problem in the United States of America that the fight between these two political parties is distinctly about. One party wants that to be a possibility. The other party is literally trying to put a stop to it. And here is a young lady, I'm presuming, who is, I don't even know if this is a protest sign. You know what I mean? It seems like a just awareness sign. Yeah? All right. Anyways, so just letting you know that I again, I appreciate it, but would you call that person a protester? Chat room. Curious. Chat room. Does that person qualify as a protester? Right. Yeah, it's advertising. Are we at the raping and pillaging? No, that's they've scheduled that for Thursday at 2. It's a 10-minute window. Yeah, it's an advocate. Yeah, right. She's advocating for an issue she cares about. That's not a protest. She's not a protester. She's not protesting. She's there to advocate. It's a very distinct thing. She is an activist who gives a shit. Yes? And she's right behind this lady, who's speaking. Which is smart, but there you go. Just important. I want you to look at how it's being portrayed and kind of the fear mongering about, dear God, will there be another 1968, right? That's what we've been hearing. First of all, there's no reason why there would be. Secondly, fuck you.
Here.
And by the way, if there was going to be one, it should have been at the RNC. I don't advocate this, but that's where it would have made fucking sense. Because that's the party that's like anti-Antifa all the time. That's the party that's against minority rights. That's the party that's trying to stop women from having rights. That's the party that codified that women are second-class citizens in our country right fucking now. Right fucking now. And we have to fix it. Right? That was the part. The RNC, and I mean, from the party switch that happened because of the Dixiecrats, the RNC is the DNC of 1968. If anybody's fucking paying attention.
Look at this police presence. It
is bicycles, ma'am. They're on bicycles. Simmer. They're on bicycles. Those are bicycles.
Really quite remarkable.
Yes, it's remarkable because it looks like the naked bike ride before it starts in New York. That's a lot of bicycles. Bicycles. Ma'am, it's a row of bicycles. The cops are standing around wearing all their gear. They're not even in riot gear. They're just in standard defensive gear. They're wearing slacks. Simmer down.
There is a...
And by the way, that motherfucker is talking to a camera in front of this row of bicycles saying the exact same shit.
Line of Chicago police at the ready because this protest...
At the ready to what? Get a paper route? Sorry. They are ready in case the Tour de France breaks out. There will be no Tour de France. We do not have time for that. And when they have it every year, when the roads are blocked, they get up on the sidewalk and they kill all of our escargot. And that is why we are behind. I don't like it. We do not have time for this. Tour de France. Tour de France. All right. The cops are there to protect protesters from MAGA people. Slayer Chick says, yeah, you're not wrong. That the irony is that they're, it's more to create a perimeter where they won't get interfered with, or to keep like fake black bloc people, paid, like agents provocateurs. Sorry, I'm just like to say that there's so much French going on in this whole day. First, we have appetizers, then the aperitif, and then we have, the Black Bloc, oui. And this is how it's going. I'm just telling you this. I like it, Andrea. Let's have him. Do I have to refer to him as Lemon? I'm totally fine with that. All right. So I just want you to look at, because the important thing is you guys are going to watch the DNC today. I'm only on for another 15 minutes. I'll be on doing the regular show later on in the afternoon. And I want to be abundantly clear. Like, I want to show you how to watch this stuff. Tara's in Chicago, so she's not on today, but she'll be back next week.
Test is supposed to march down Michigan Avenue. As you mentioned, Governor Pritzker has 250 National Guardsmen at the ready just in case.
And they're handing out free Palestine there. You don't even have to pay for it.
Take a listen.
And whoops.
They are, at the perimeter. Nobody expects that we'll have to use them.
By the way, I met him at the backstage at Sexy Liberal in Chicago. Lovely dude. He was great. He was really nice. And Mrs. Million, Johnny Million's wife, Lisa, the lovely Lisa, had an issue that she wanted to bring up with, and I'll let him talk about it if he wants to, with the governor about, something she deals with at work and blah, 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 because I don't want to give away details unless people wanted to talk about it, whatever. But anyways, she had a question that she would love to ask the governor. So Johnny walked right up to him and talked to him about it. It was great.
For anything very serious, but we also want to make sure that we have additional law enforcement type folks who are in uniform and who are...
type. Not actual law enforcement, just the type. You know the type. Right out of Central Casting. Probably Irish, big gut, holding a donut, swinging a nightstick. Something out of a movie that I think I saw half of. Right.
Trained to be police.
And behind me,
yeah, look at this. The official route is all the way down here and back up. Yeah, okay, guys, you're obviously not from here. If you go all the way down there, you're going to get your ass kicked. So just stay up here. I'm not kidding. Like they're stopping it here for the safety of the protesters. Because I got to tell you, there is. Let me just. We'll look at the crowd again and see if you can see a color distinction that might, once you cross a certain part of Chicago where you go, I don't know what the tipping point from north side to downtown to south side, you know, what constitutes it now, because it's a little more amorphous than it used to be, which is a good thing. But there's a bunch of people, neighborhood folks, that might have an issue with some of these folks threatening the election of the first woman of color in their neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like that they're down by that end of that red part. Just there. Just say it. Might just get a little agitated, let's say. Good people. Decent people. But yeah. I like no, not hoodlums. These are hardworking folks, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. These are what would effectively be the north side of the south side of Chicago. It's not the hood. The hood is way farther south from there, but what would you call the transitional hood? It is the south side of Chicago, which is it's like Harlem. It's notoriously a black area of the city, but because of economic growth and because the city's pretty fucking awesome, there's a bridge part where there's just like in every, like there were the good Italians and the bad Italians back in the day, and they would have this line between them and that kind of stuff. And the Chinese and maybe the Vietnamese in Chinatown and Little Vietnam would have a little line where, there's just a little bit of, I'm just saying, there's like a fuzzy, instead of being a distinct line where, well, redlining used to be real and now it's not there. That once redlining was gone, then it starts to break. And then people start integrating. It's a crazy thing. It's let me tell you, there's some lovely fucking people in Chicago of all types. I'm happy to know very, very many of them. And again, for those of you that don't know, Frances Collier of Frangela and I were at Second City together when we were 15 years old. And she's one of my, oddly enough, one of my, longest friendships in my life now, because we got to, reconnect because of the Stephanie Miller Show. And I can't tell you, when I'm backstage and we're about to go on, or we've just finished, or we're waiting, for the last little bit, sometimes when there's so many guests, we don't do the panel. That when I have that moment, every time I walk over, and it probably annoys her at this point, but I just tell Frances how, what a joy it is to be on a stage with her. And especially in Chicago, since it's where we're both from. Yeah, so.
See the CRS, they are a community relations team. They are actually part
CRT, I guess.
Of DOJ, and their job is de-escalation. They are
awesome.
Working to make sure.
What a nutty concept.
That.
Yeah, and clearly in 1968, that was the problem. They had too many de-escalation staff available.
Outside agitators are jumping in and creating incidents as they move down Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, because there's a fucking stroller right there. Again, we in the Democratic side of things recognize the difference between protests and riots. And never the twain shall meet. Whereas because Republicans take any semblance of the riot part and tarnish the rest of the protesters and therefore the message with it.
Avenue, but we have all kinds of law enforcement at the ready to keep this march on Michigan Avenue.
Okay, real quick. The person sitting there, I don't know if you guys can see that, is wearing a red armband. I can't see the side of it, but I'm hoping it doesn't contain, say, a white circle with a formerly Tibetan good luck symbol in it, if you know what I'm saying. Seems a bit odd, wearing a black jacket with a red armband in any case. I mean, maybe he's dressed as a fake Trump or something, and that's we can't see the front of them, and that's a blonde wig, and that was the best they could do on short notice.
And Natasha, as you know, we are miles away from the United Center, and the goal is to keep everybody away from the United Center.
Thanks for watching. Go to...
Hey, I feel better that I watched. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you, lemon dress lady. So if you'll notice, the languaging about it in the written press especially is like, 1968, the protesters are there, there's going to be a march, and by the way, this tarnishes the pro-Palestinian folks too. You know what I mean? It makes it look like, well, these fuckers can't protest without becoming violent. You know what I mean? Because you have to understand that's how that talk carries. Because if they're saying this protest will probably turn violent on the scale of 1968, which is the languaging they have talked about this entire time, they're basically saying, see any of the signs you see in that group? Those are the ones that'll fucking destroy things. They're gonna get violent. They're not capable of protesting, normally, and having their voice heard. You see what I mean? That's the other problem I have with the narrative around it. Besides the fact that it's fucking clickbait, it's also a way of tarnishing the pro-Palestinian and pro-ceasefire crowd that are there, the people who are fighting for women's rights, any random, other, like the LGBT folks there or whatever, like they're going to fucking stonewall again at the DNC, whatever the fuck, right? So, but the narrative paints that, like, these people could become dangerous. What flags are they carrying? It's a one-to-one association trick, and it's terrible. They're behaving. They care about what they're doing. And this is, by the way, this is the same thing that happened to George Floyd protesters. Because people did riot, but that wasn't the people who gave a shit about George Floyd and what had happened. I mean, I'm sure there were people who were just enraged and just, that's part of what happened. But the people who protested peacefully weren't a part of that and didn't deserve to be tainted that way in the discussion about it, right? But the overarching narrative about the George Floyd protest was that they turned violent, and that when they say they turned violent, that means the people who were marching normally then became violent. Not a different group came in, not that there were agent provocateurs fucking around, but that those people, they're fine now. And then, boom, right? Wait till the sun goes down is basically what they were saying. And to those folks, I would say, fuck you. There is a distinction between the peaceful protesters who care deeply about that issue and are getting up off their ass and walking down the street and making a statement, right? Versus the people who show up later and want violence for violence sake or think they're justified in it and, aren't that different from maggots or Alex Jones's followers or any of those assholes or the Jan 6 people, right? Who attack police officers and all that kind of shit. That's a different set than people. And that's why also we're capable of making the distinction between the people who showed up for Trump's stupid fucking speech on January 6th and then went home, and the other ones that went to the Capitol. There's a distinction. Do I think the people who stood there and went, you were ripped off, do I think they're idiots? Yeah. But they had a right to protest. They had the right to be stupid. You couldn't take it away from that right away from them if you wanted to. But they went the fuck home. Right? They voted, they showed up to rally, and then they fucking left. And there's a huge distinction between those people and whatever, argument I might have with them, on that side, and them just being dumb, and the fuckers who killed two of their own, stomped a woman to death who was having an amphetamines-related heart attack, the Roseanne Boylan woman who got literally the cops they were trying to beat, these protesters, drag her fucking over to the cops and go, save her. Like, the fucking nerve of these assholes. And then, never mind the fact that Ashley Babbitt had a knife. But that said, there's a huge difference between those two. And I'm comfortable making that distinction. Because one you can argue with, one you can debate with, one you can have a political discussion with, and maybe, just maybe, as you're arguing, you both find a common ground area where you can make progress because you care. You both care, you wouldn't be arguing. But there might be, we both recognize there's a problem. We both have different solutions for it, right? So maybe in that conversation we can do that. You can't do that with somebody who's fucking throwing Molotov cocktails and shit like that. You understand? And you can't do it with somebody who's going to fucking, kick a cop's teeth in and carry a Confederate flag through the fucking rotunda. That's completely on a different scale. And again, the problem I have with the narrative, right? The problem I have with the narrative about this, there might be protesting, there might be rioting, and it might get dangerous and stuff, is it creates this free association that anybody who's there, like these people, once the sun goes down, they may look like they give a shit about an issue, but really these are just fucking common criminals. Because that's what they painted the George Floyd protesters with. That's the way that it's the same fucking narrative. But nobody did it with the fucking Trump people until they were already attacking the Capitol. Did you notice that? Did you notice that? This kind of goes to what Cliff and I were talking about. Where, we just we're being nice with Mitch McConnell and his ilk about, Supreme Court justices and empty seats in a way that they would never be the same deference to us. Well, you individually did it, but I'm talking about the press narrative, 10 to 5. You know what I mean? Yep. So, anyways, I got to tell you, it's not going to pop off. Because I got to tell you, Chicago don't play. I love that fucking city, and I got to tell you, I don't know what the weather was like in 1968, but I guarantee no matter how good it was, no matter how beautiful that day was, it would not override the fight for voters' rights and minority rights in this country, and dogs being sicked on people and people being fucking hosed just for walking. Not for rioting, just for walking. Right? Back in 1968, that is not how it is today. And I guarantee half of those fuckers that were standing there with holding up their signs had a fucking Starbucks in their other hand. They had snacks in their bag. They fucking had Kind bars. Let me tell you something. You have to be a special kind of an asshole to go, to scream about oppression when you have snacks in your bag on the same level, because again, it's worth pushing back against. There's definitely stuff to march and protest for, and that's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that if you think you're in the same situation that people were in 1968, fuck you. Especially as lily white as that crowd was. Yeah? Fucking Kind bars and a Starbucks in your hand, and you're like, it's like there's a dude in LA who for the longest time had a "the end is nigh" sign. He became a meme. When you saw the guy walking around with the sandwich board that said "the end is nigh," there was a guy in New York who used to do it back in the 20s, and then another guy picked up that thing and was like, he would just stand at off ramps and stuff like that, and he had a big "the end is nigh" sandwich board that he was standing. And I remember seeing him. At one point he had a beer. He had a full fucking beer, like one of those tall cans. And I was like, I guess it's not that nigh. Like, just what are you like? Because I was like, homeless, crazy, whatever, and I'm like, he's just fucking retired. Louis Nye, right? Yeah. Anyways, so let's see. Yeah, it's 11:02. I'm going to let you guys go watch DNC stuff. I will be picking from things to talk about. Largely what I'm going to be focused on, because a lot of people are going to watch the actual speeches and stuff, is how the press is talking about it, both on, what would be the conventional press and, of course, how Fox is handling it, because they're flipping the fuck out. And I really want to look at what their narrative is, because I think that's where I do the most good, if you know what I'm saying. And then I'm also starting to work on the other stuff this week for the Project 2025 stuff. I may pre-tape those and post them as opposed to doing them live, but I might do both. But I have to do a lot of pre-production on those, because I'm going to directly refute, and it's a little more production than just kind of riffing. Okay. So anyways, love you guys. I will see you this afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that like, subscribe, share the show, all that kind of stuff. And I will, hopefully be injecting a bit of, truth goo into all this nonsense. There you go. There you go. Anyways, welcome to, I think we have a sort of a side troll or a beef and milk mixer. I appreciate where you're coming from. I do feel like you're completely misguided, and you are reverse anthropomorphizing Palestinians. You're taking their humanity away by creating a bloc that doesn't exist. Just letting you know. People are porous, and there are a lot of other people in mixes. Distinctions like that are impossible to make, but keep trying, and I appreciate that what you mean by it, and that's all that matters. Okay, that said, remember, if I could, just one thing that I can leave you with today, it's... Gotcha. Hit the like, everybody. I'll see you this afternoon. I gotta charge up my headphones because they weren't charged up while I was gone, and now they're like on 2%. I'm like, no, must end show and be able to. I can't hear it. Gotta go. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for the super chat, Poo Picker Upper. I'm glad you loved the show on Saturday. It was super fun. The pay-per-view, if you haven't watched it, you can still watch it. It's like you can still, you're not watching it live, but you can still see it if you go to sexyliberal.com.